Finance, Technology, Commerce, and Trade Committee. I am joined by my colleagues, Council Members Buscaino, Bonin, and Krikorian. And let's just jump right into it. Mr. Espinosa, are there any general public comment cards?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, seeing no general public comment cards, general public comment is closed. Unless there's an objection from my colleagues, what I'd like to do is move items 1 and 4 through 7 on consent.
Move the items.
Okay, I don't know if you wanted to say anything on 6, but
No.
okay,
All good.
then that'll be the order. Without objection, item 1 and 4, 5, 6, and 7 are on consent. Well, I should say, are there any cards on any of those items?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, seeing no cards on those items, it's the order of the committee to move those items on consent. That brings us to item number 2. Sir, would you please read it into the record, Mr. Espinosa?
Item number 2 is reports from the City Attorney and the Board of Airport Commissioners and an ordinance relative to authorizing the Los Angeles World Airports to use a competitive sealed proposal selection process and alternative project delivery methods for select capital improvement projects related to the Los Angeles International Airport Police Facility.
Thank you. We have representatives from the City Attorney's Office in LAWA, and we appreciate you being here. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Cynthia Guidry, Deputy Executive Director of Planning and Development for LAWA. This item before you is as stated, to obtain your approval for an ordinance for alternative delivery for the airport police facility at the airport. We have, this facility actually is in dire need. We have the airport police that resides in several locations throughout the airport, and actually in 9 different locations. And so this ordinance is for the first step, which would allow us to procure an alternative method for delivering this project. We're looking forward to doing something similar to a design-build project that we've done in several other improvements at the airport. So today's approval is for you allowing us to begin that process through this ordinance.
Any additional open comments, starting comments, or no? Or just we'll move to questions? Okay. So help me understand, what are the advantages of using this competitive sealed proposal over the traditional request for proposal? Typically,
for the airport, we usually use the design bid build method of delivering projects, which requires you to go full throughout design. With this program, we anticipate that we want the best qualified contractor to perform the work at the airport, and so this allows us to use their experience, their design experience, construction experience, their ability to work with different subs. All those play into the procurement process, and allows us to deliver the project more efficiently, quicker, as far as saving time on the overall schedule, and allows us some flexibility in the design and construction phase process.
And the RFP doesn't allow that?
Well, today with the traditional method, you would design all the way throughout for full 100% design, and then you would do a traditional bid out for low responsible bidder. Doing the alternative delivery method allows us to really look at the qualifications of the firms as opposed to the lowest bidder. So we're seeking to have more qualified firms to do the design and the construction of the facility.
And the process requires a new ordinance?
Yes, it does, by city charter.
So, and does that applies to other projects, or it has to be just for this particular?
For all the projects in the past, LAWA has had to come to the Board of Airport Commissioners first, and then through this committee and ultimately City Council for alternative delivery methods for all projects. So we come specifically for each project. We've done it in the past for our Midfield Satellite Concourse, some of our Terminal Bradley, international work, our central utility plant, so it is project specific.
Great. And the airport police, will they be involved in the design of the building? And
oh, absolutely, you bet.
So I know they will, but I just want to make that clear because that's important for all.
They'll be watching and making sure that their needs are definitely met. So
we're also inviting the community to be a part of the planning for the outside, the access, the entryways, possibly a community room for people. We've been working with and have briefed Councilmember Bonin and have been very involved in those discussions to make sure that it's part of the community, and we have kind of an early discussion with them.
one other thing, a lot of times when these different projects come, we try to schedule them right after BOAC approves them. Sometimes there seems to be a delay in the city attorney's office in some respects, and I don't know, is there a way to front load some of those issues so that we have less of that coming? I mean, this gets delayed and some other ones, and some of that's expected, but I just wanted to put it out there since this was one of those projects that sort of got delayed through our internal city attorney processes.
Okay, we can definitely look at that. Figure out ways to improve that process and time frame.
Okay. Colleagues, any additional questions on this? Seeing no additional questions, then we will approve the CAO and LAWA recommendations and adopt the ordinance. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Espinosa, would you read the next item into the record?
Item number 3 is a motion from Council Members Bonin and Harris-Dawson relative to addressing homelessness in Manchester Square in advance of the start of airport construction associated with the landslide access modernization program, and this has also been referred to the Homelessness and Poverty Committee.
Bailey.
Good afternoon. First, I want to preface by saying that I think that everyone here knows this issue is very important for all of us and for all of you. I mean, homelessness throughout the city of Los Angeles, it is an all-time high. It's the highest in the nation. And all of you, starting with Mayor Garcetti and Councilmember Bonin, and all of you here have put it as a priority. So have we. And I think that it's no secret that it's a priority for Bonin. It's his district. And while we have a lot of limitations at the airport with funding laws and restrictions, we need to approach this in a different way and be creative with how we handle it. To that end, under Deborah's leadership, Deborah Flint, we have been very proactive in how we look at Manchester Square. Homeless people are people, and that's how we have to start the conversation. We have to be compassionate and loving throughout the approach and how we address it with our solutions. So I want to go into some of the things that we are doing and what we're going to be doing in the short term and the long term. So first, this is just 2 years ago, a picture of Manchester Square. And the next slide will show you a few months back. And the next slide. I think that most of you, I know Mike has been out there, or Councilmember Bonin's been out there a number of times. I know, Bob, your staff has been out there a number of times, but that's the location. And it is the future site of our consolidated rental car facility. So when you exit, you're going down south on the 405 freeway, right on the right when you exit Century, that's where Manchester Square is. Next slide. That whole area has been, for years, has been a residential area, a number of single dwellings, apartments, homes, and then under the soundproofing program, LAWA has gone in and has obtained 90% of the homes in that area. We have 37 units left to secure as the airport. And the next slide. One of the things when I talk about the airport being restricted by law and what we can do, one of the areas where we have a lot of flexibility is our police department. And under Chief Maggard's leadership, they have done a tremendous job. And it is something where it goes hand in hand with being loving, supportive, and then when you're seeing criminal activity or problems or anything that should be taken out of the community, they do it right away. He has a number of officers that are assigned specifically to Manchester Square, and Maggard has doubled up and increased the presence in Manchester Square. And I'd like to have the chief just to give a couple minutes on what they've been doing.
Thanks, Trevor. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and honorable members, we have a very similar approach that Trevor was explaining. I mean, we see our role as more than law enforcement. We are peacekeepers. We are facilitators of resources. We're partners, and we're part of that community. And so we take that responsibility very seriously. We have 4 officers and a police sergeant assigned to that area full-time so that we have literally 24-hour coverage there. These are officers that have specialized training. We have a USC student intern assigned to this group of people to help us with tracking and with information sharing amongst that community. We are finalizing an agreement that we have with LA County to bring a full-time clinician attached to this team of officers so that we can have people that are really well trained and really have a sense for what the needs are and what the resources available are to that community. They'll be teamed full-time with these officers. And so we're all in. As Trevor said, we are trying to make sure that we're providing virtually every resource imaginable, and yet for people who are either wanted by the law or are not behaving by the rules of that community or breaking the law, then they're removed immediately for the safety of not just the people that are there, living in RVs and living in tents, but for the remaining residents that are there, and then, of course, to support Bright Star School that is still has a full-time curriculum that's going in that same community. So we're proud of the relationships. We're appreciative of the partnership that we have with LAPD, with the Bureau of Sanitation, with our other partners from LAWA who are helping us with cleanup days, and we're looking forward to doing even more as we get more resources and do some other important partnerships.
And I've met with the officers that cover the area, and they know the people that are out there. They have relationships. They go out there often, so they're very dedicated to the area. So one of the reasons why we have the motion is because we're doing so many things, as all of you know, at LA World Airports and LAX, and we have a number of different projects coming down in the future. And in this area, we need to have ready for lay down for construction, and we need to relocate the homeless people that are there. So now we want to go into the numbers, and a year ago we had the number at about 349 homeless individuals. Many are encampments, a lot are tents and RVs, but the count was 349. The new count for this year has not been official yet, but it's around 420. The number is not going down. It's staying around that number. And then a new or somewhat new problem that we have had is there's been activity in some of our terminals, which the chief has been addressing, but it's something where some people may have gone over from Manchester Square to the terminals, and we are increasing our patrol there. So I say that because one of the solutions that I'm really excited about and happy about is that I have been advocating for, and Deborah Flynn, our CEO, has approved, is to bring on a project manager that will help us and can be dedicated and look at all of these issues and work with the city, work with the county, work with a number of supervisors, work with LASA, and really be able to organize and coordinate all of those efforts. And that person is going to be coming on in the next 2 weeks. She met your staff yesterday, and she's going to be working with myself, our commercial department, and with the chief and his team. And her sole responsibility is going to be really to look at where are our resources and how can we take this number from 420 down to 400, 350, 300, and get these people rapidly rehoused. She did that at a program in the San Fernando Valley where she spent 15 years working at LA Family Housing. So I'm really, really proud that we're trying to figure out how we can do things in limitations and be creative and kind of think out of the box, and that's kind of one of our first kind of answers. And I know that's something that you, Councilmember Bonin, have wanted, is to try to figure out how we can do to coordinate things, fast track things, and most of all, figure out ways to help people. And that's a good starting point for us. Next is we have a task force that started with Councilmember Bonin's office with all the agencies, the county, the city, city attorney's office, a number of different agencies, and they've been meeting monthly. We're now going to make them meet weekly. And we're going to bounce them back from Bonin's office to the airport so that we make sure that we have the right people in the room and we really move forward all the decisions and get things moving on the task force. The city attorney has proposed a strategic fencing for the area, which we are looking at. We're in support of, and we're going to see how we can fund that. It's a good idea, and we just want to, review that and find the funding. As the chief said, we're also going to increase police activity in the area. Once we have the project manager on board, we're going to have her come in and figure out in a very short amount of time, and we've already had a lot of discussions with her, but looking at the big picture items, where can we go for resources in with the city, with HOPE teams, with working with sanitation for more cleanup, make sure that they're tied with the outreach on the same day, and then also increase our work. We've been doing a lot of work with PATH and with LA Housing Authority. We want to make sure that we increase that as well. Also, kind of key to Councilmember Bonin, because it's his district, is communications. We don't want to hide from the press or the community. We want to make sure that his constituents feel like they're a part of our solution and what we're doing and the plan that we have for Manchester Square, so that we're all a part of it, the city and the county and all of our partners. And so people all throughout Councilmember Bonin's district have been asking questions. What are we doing? What's the plan? And so we're getting there, and we're providing answers, and we want to make sure that everybody is a part of that so everybody can help. So I love for questions.
Great. So did you say what the timeline was in terms of, getting from the 420 to 350 to zero?
I don't want to put a timeline on it right now. Of course, we have people in our commercial division who are pushing and pushing because they want the space open. It's for our consolidated rent-a-car facility, and I know some of the staff there would love to use it for some laydown. It would be great to have by August, but what I'd love to do is come back to you after we have our project manager on the board and we have a better assessment, probably in about 2 weeks, and we say it's going to be at least 10 months, it's going to be 9 months. And I think that when you look at kind of the big picture items and the small items, so when you look at the fencing, you increase the outreach, you increase the cleanups, you start to, and at the same time you're saying, okay, this population can be rehoused in a transitional home right away. This population can be rehoused in this area. And we also have 27 that have vouchers that have not found housing. So somebody needs to follow up on those vouchers, because there has to be some place in the city that will accept their voucher, and we can get those 27 housed. So when you do all of these efforts all at the same time, we start to make the reduction. We did it a lot with my work when I worked for Senator Feinstein at the VA. You take populations and you focus on them. You have to identify who they are, and then you go from there.
A number of questions, but I want Mr. Bonin to be able to take the lead, and this is your motion in your district, so.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What kind of vouchers are they? Are they VASH vouchers?
VASH
Are they shelter plus care vouchers?
I believe all of them are voucher vouchers. We can double check, but I believe all they're.
So they're all veterans that have vouchers so far?
Excuse me. No, they're the HUD vouchers.
Okay, all right. And what agencies have been asked, are doing placements with the folks with the vouchers?
Half.
Okay. And is there any use of shared housing at all?
No.
All right, I'd like you to look into shared housing. I'll connect you with Self-Help and Recovery Exchange, which is a West Side operator. We just gave earlier this week or last week $50,000 for a pilot for shared housing in my district. So they're hiring housing locators with this. It wouldn't be for the folks with the vouchers, it would be for others, somebody who's willing to get off the streets tonight or tomorrow as long as they have SSI or disability or some sort of income stream. So I'm sorry. I know everybody's sensitive about discussing the FAA issues, particularly with Eddie in the room. But Eddie, how you doing? Good to see you. There's just there's a couple I have to ask, and if you want to say anything, that would be great. We miss having you at the table. Eddie used to work for the airport and for the city attorney's office. We have what's that?
He does again.
He's in the city attorney's office. Oh, you're back at city attorney's office. Oh, okay. Oh, then I'm not so worried. Well, you may actually, you or Suzanne may have something to add on this. We have, over the past few years, since Ruth Galanter was in office, relocated people who lived there, either homeowners or renters. What's the funding distinction there between the folks that we have helped relocate and those who are roofless that we can't? Can anybody shed some light on that?
I'd love to ask. I can follow up.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Happy to follow up.
Yeah, and that's one of the questions I'm interested in, because the airport has spent a lot of money relocating people who lived in Manchester Square. There are now other people who live in Manchester Square, and I'd be curious to hear what avenues the FAA is willing to pursue on that.
Yeah, I know what your question is, and I'm happy to follow that up and get you an answer.
Okay, all right. And when is the new coordinator starting?
Hopefully, April 17th.
Okay, all right. And she was from Family Housing in the Valley?
Yeah, she started there after college, and she's been there for nearly 17 years, and she's now a director there. But once she's fully signed on, because I'm not sure if she's actually given notice yet, but we brought her by. Hopefully, we'll bring her by again so you can meet her.
Okay. I mean, the situation, colleagues, you saw a slide of one of the encampments. It really looks like a refugee camp there. I mean, Supervisor Ridley Thomas, when he took a tour, was, mouth agape at what's happening there. And I'm disappointed but not shocked that the new counts will have over 400 people living there. It's a reality in Los Angeles that areas that are effectively dead zones become magnets for encampments. It's the safe and easy and logical place to go if you're homeless and you're being pushed around elsewhere. It's why 3rd Avenue in Venice is a place. It's the only industrial street in Venice. So it's unsurprising. But what's even more problematic is that there are 37 different families that still live there? No, more than that, right? There's a number of families that still live in the middle of this.
It's 37 units.
Yeah, 37 units, so over 100 people who still live there.
Yeah. So some would be apartments and some would be houses. I don't.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a combination of both. But so there are folks who are living in the middle of this, coming home from work every day, and there's a school in the middle of this area. So there are school children who are walking to this school who literally have to walk in the middle of the street. Fortunately, they're not particularly heavily traveled streets. They have to walk in the middle of the street because the sidewalks are taken over. We are on my end coming up with some C3 money, and I know Supervisor Ridley Thomas is doing that. Probably won't start until from the county's end until July because they're waiting for Measure H to kick in. But that'll be additional resource that's brought to bear. I appreciate that LAP or that LAWA PD is being so helpful. It's just, as we've seen time and time again, homelessness can't be solved by law enforcement. Just can't. It's good that you're helpful and you're being creative, and I really, really appreciate it. But it's just not a problem you can solve. And I want us to continue exploring what the line is that we can get up to.
I understand, and I'll explore that more with my colleagues and get back to you. One other thing that, and the project manager, when I was interviewing a number of applicants, the reason why I chose the person I did was because she has a lot of contacts in the social service community and in the homeless community. So I thought it would be very prudent and pertinent for this issue, because knowing how you are and in looking at all the different agencies that can help, because it's not a one-person problem, it's an us problem that we all have to get around and help. So this project manager, she can use her contacts and talk to different people in the community to help at Manchester Square.
Do we have any demographic data on where folks are coming from and how long they've been homeless?
We do. I don't have it with me today. I can get that to you.
Yeah, when we have this in H&P committee, that would be interesting.
Okay.
I'm curious how many are coming from, say, Venice versus the South Bay, Inglewood, Skid Row, versus from outside of Los Angeles altogether.
Yeah, we do have that. We have discussed it. I just don't have all the data in my head.
You mentioned that there's increasing homelessness in the terminals.
It's not, there is no count of homeless people, no official count of homeless people in the terminals. There has been an uptick of activity. So we have people that go from Manchester Square or other places into the terminals, and then I can let the chief speak to that because that's his domain.
Yeah, so some of the officers have noted that some of the people who are during the day in the Manchester Square area may on occasion drift into the central terminal area in the evening because it's a safe place. It gets them out of the elements. However, that is not just the represented group. There has been an extraordinary effort by all three of our patrol watches to make sure that we have continuous touch of the people that are there, to make sure, just as we've tried to do in the square, is to understand their story. Why are they there? Are they truly homeless? Are they disconnected from their families? And again, it's about bringing a creative approach to understanding what has brought them there, and then more importantly, how do we help them get out of that area? Some people, again, as we stumble across, are wanted by the law, are involved in other kind of criminal activity, but by and large, we've had in the last 2 months significant success in removing a lot of the people that were in the CTA area and getting them kind of on their way and off to other and better resources. So that number is a fairly low number today compared to what it was 2 to 3 months ago.
Okay. And I presume they're all on the outside of the security areas.
Yeah, that is correct. They're obviously they would have to have a ticket and go through screening in order to be on the sterile side, and they're all in the public areas.
So are there folks who are living there full time?
There have been some people that make it a practice to be there, particularly at night, but there's nobody living there really full time.
Okay. And are there other LAWA properties where people have been living or setting up encampments other than the central terminals and Manchester Square?
There's occasionally some people that set up day camps, sometimes overnight, in the pocket parks across from In-N-Out, if you're familiar with that area outside of the airport. Mm-hmm. But we work very closely with our facilities crew. Mr. Shooter is here, who leads that effort to try and make sure that we are staying on top of the people who may be there for particularly overnight, so that we contact them try to keep those areas clear. So on occasion, there will be other areas of airport property where people will set up, but that's generally been temporary and not consistent and continuous.
There are scores, if not a couple hundred people who are living north of the airport, not on airport property in the Bayona wetlands. Do we have any idea whether or not there are people living in the north side property or even in the Butterfly Preserve?
Not that we're aware of.
How often do we patrol the Butterfly Preserve?
Intermittently, we do have cars that go through there, and we actually have done a little bit of training in that area recently. And so if there were people that were there camped out full-time, we would have discovered them then.
Okay. That's all I have for now, Mr. Chair.
The other thing for that area on relationship to the buildings, there are a number of buildings that are vacant, and we are working on demolishing those that we own and secure because a number of people have been breaking those buildings. So we're fast tracking the demolition of those buildings.
The ones in Manchester Square,
Yes.
where folks are breaking in and then squatting, essentially.
Yes. And one of the things that your staff came back to from the task force meetings early on, months ago, was, that we need to look at kind of the small stuff as well, and that's, signage in the area. So it's what we're working on that now as you speak, is signage, and then the buildings, demolishing the buildings. We need to have activity in the area because people think nothing's coming. There's been no action. And so that's one of the things that the social service providers think there's an uptick because people don't think anything's happening in that area. So we need to have movement.
Yeah, it does need to be married, though, with a pretty aggressive C3, because otherwise we're going to see folks just move into other parts of
Absolutely.
Westchester or
Absolutely.
into Mr. Harris Dawson's
That's why we're doing all of this.
Right.
Yeah, but I just wanted to mention that as part of the buildings.
And besides LAWA, who else, what other departments are taking up the cost of this?
Oh, so we have LA Housing Authority, we have sanitation, we have PATH, we have Supervisor Mark Ridley Thomas's office is involved and very supportive. We have the City Attorney's Office is very engaged, and Claudia Martin, who's a neighbor prosecutor, has been phenomenal in helping us and assisting. Councilor Vaughn's office has been tremendous. So we have a number. We're not stopping. We continue to engage.
I get it. So, full court press, and then, of course, the other thing we have to look at is how the intense effort here impacts the overall budget for the city for things like Operation Clean Streets and that kind of thing. Because we want to do everything we can to clean this up, but we don't want to jeopardize other operations as well that are happening throughout the city.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't want to put everything on this project manager, but it's the one thing where we can have one person looking at the big picture and looking at other resources. Are we looking at different philanthropic resources? Are there things that other areas or funding that can be looked at? So I completely understand. It's a large city, 15 council districts. We have a lot of people to serve, and we're a piece of the pie. So definitely get it.
Great. Any additional questions, colleagues?
Just one more comment. I mean, part of the sensitivity here is, early in my tenure with Mr. Rosendahl, we lived through the largest mass eviction in the history of Los Angeles when a privately owned company evicted over 100 people from Lincoln Place in Venice. And it was all over the news, and it was a front page story. If we don't have a comprehensive plan in place that includes relocation, every station in town is going to be covering Los Angeles World Airports is doing the largest mass eviction of homeless people in the history of Los Angeles. That's really what we're looking at, because it's going to be 400 or 500 people, and that's going to be a huge story. And I think everybody wants to do this for the right reasons. There's also that hanging out there. Whether or not it's easy to do with the restrictions in place is one thing, but it is going to be all eyes on Los Angeles and all eyes on LAX when and before we start construction on this.
It's a good point. And further, underline the fact that this is an airport issue, just as much as it is a local issue. This is really about airport property, and we need to figure out how to bring the right resources to bear, because it will affect the airport's image and everything else. Initially, I was planning on just adopting this motion, but Mr. Bonner, if you'd like, I'm happy to hold it so that we can hear back in 3 or 4 months or something.
Yeah, I'm happy to come back
It has
and,
to go to H&P after this, too, I think. I think it would stand for both committees.
yeah, I mean, if you would like, in 3 months, we can give a lot more information. I'm happy to come back and give an update.
So in that case, what we'll do is I'll recommend that we hold it in committee. That way we have an agenda item to bring up in 3 or 4 months. We don't have to re-agendize it.
That's fine. That's fine.
But that will not, that's not going to stop it from going to the other committees. So without objection, that'll be the order. Sure. Great. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Very informative. So we have 2 additional items related to the port. Mr. Espinosa, if you could read item 8.
Item number 8 is the report from the Board of Harbor Commissioners relative to the 10th Amendment to the permit with Eagle Marine Services, LTD, for Port of Los Angeles property.
Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Good afternoon, honorable council members. So the item before you is the 10th Amendment for Eagle Marine Services. And Eagle Marine has a permit with the Port of Los Angeles and the city for 50 years, which was just recently approved in the 9th Amendment on October of 2016. So the 10th Amendment covers the following elements. Eagle Marine now has a new owner, which is CGM, which is the 3rd largest shipping line in the country, or actually in the world, and they assured us that they were going to be bringing 2.4 million TEUs to Eagle Marine. So recognizing the current market conditions and the revised compensation structure was negotiated based on a gain share approach. Just some additional elements. It incorporates 30 acres into the permit that was once under space assignment at a fixed rent of $3 million plus annual CPIs. It resets the compensation for the next 5 years. The TEUs will increase, the rate for the TEUs will increase 1.7% in year 1, and future resets will mimic the current arithmetic reset procedure called in the permit for future resets. It increases the minimum annual guarantee from $153,000 per acre to $200,000 per acre in year 1, $205,000 per acre in year 2, followed by CPIs and a cap of $216 per acre. It also grants Eagle Marine the rights for additional 2 pieces of property, 41 acres of landfill that's currently out there, plus an additional 35 acres for the future, and those would require a CEQA analysis if we were to do those. And it also allows Eagle Marine to participate in GRIs in the year 2020, wherein today they're not applicable to Eagle Marine, which is a general rate increase. And then lastly, it releases the city of LA from a claim filed by Eagle Marine for the development of the additional property. So these are the elements of this amendment that take into part of this. So with this, there's no expenditures on the Port of LA's part. Over the life of the permit, it'll equal about 60 million TEUs and about $2.1 billion to the Port of Los Angeles. So we feel that this is a strategic move, which we feel will result in additional revenue, increase the MAG, and provides us and removes the threat of any litigation. So,
Thank you. Any opening
Sarai Baga from the CAO's office. We reviewed the department's proposal and concur with the recommendations.
So I have a question. So this is the 4th amendment that we've had in less than a year on this, and we approved a lease extension back in November. And with this change, the compensation structure takes effect back to January. So the question is, why are we getting so many amendments? Why wasn't this included in the last, incorporated in the last change?
because there were some negotiations that had to take place in order to get these rates through, and they weren't part of what we did in that initial one, which was the longer-term aspect of it, and they had a reset that was coming up this January, so we waited until that period of time to do those resets. So this was in line with what we did with the environmental assessment, which gives them the grants on the longer term to 2043, and then we worked on the compensation for this 5-year reset, which was what this item was particularly for.
Okay, so regular order of things, it's not a,
Yeah.
there shouldn't be a red flag.
No, not at all.
Okay, and have other terminals expressed concerns with changing the Eagle Marine compensation structure to assure additional volume at their pier? Or is this going to
Yes,
create direct competition with
this
other
has actually
terminal
been a
operators?
great move on our part because we don't have any terminals today that have $200,000 per acre MAG, minimum annual guarantee. So it's actually helping us set the stage for future negotiations with other customers as well. And if they bring the amount of cargo that Eagle Marine and CMA are projecting, we would definitely talk to them about replicating or coming close to some of these compensation schemes.
So you look at it, it's a positive competition.
Yes,
It's not
absolutely.
creating a race to the bottom.
No, absolutely not.
Okay. Colleagues, anything on this item?
Yeah, thank you. If I can, Mr. Chair, Mike had a question on the recent passage, overwhelming passage of Measure P. How would something like this before us be, I don't know if we're falling within the same guidelines here of this agenda item, on terms extending to 66 years? Would this help?
No, because those
They're already in.
they're grandfathered in from the original permit period.
Got
So
it.
50 years is the maximum that they can be part of.
Yeah, this is all new development.
Right. So any future development that they may do there may require a longer term. It would require a new permit.
Seeing no additional questions, the recommendation is to me to approve the CAO and the Port of Los Angeles recommendations. And without objection, that is so ordered. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, moving to our last item, which is something we try to do on a quarterly basis with each of the entities that we oversee, is to get a list of either top 10 or in this case just an overview of the port's top priorities and progress made since the last report. Last time we did this was March 1st of last year with you guys.
So we're waiting for David Letterman to come in to give us our top 10.
Apparently he's grown a beard. He's living in Montana. It's going to be tough to get him.
Well, good afternoon. Tony Gioiello and Mike DiBernardo. We're going to share this one this time. Last time I was March, like I said, March last year, we were here by ourselves, or I was here by myself. We concentrated last time purely on projects, brick and mortar capital projects. But like you said, this time we're going to be looking at more of not only projects, but also different initiatives and programs we have been working on. Last year was a banner year for the port. We did, was it 8.8 million TEUs, the most TEUs in any North American port's history, highest in our history, obviously. So what we're presenting to you today, we broke it into 3 different pods. Kind of how we look at the different priorities that the port faces. So we're looking at what we call the port pod, which is basically how we actually earn our revenue, moving cargo. So that's our first pod we're going to talk about. Our community pod is, what we're doing for the community, and I'll say for ourselves too, as far as our responsibility there. And then our environmental pod, which is very important when we look at our responsibilities and our obligations. So we're going to start with the port pod. I'm going to turn over to Mike to talk a little bit about some of the things we're doing.
Yes, thank you. So the first thing we're going to want to talk about is supply chain optimization, and it's a very important issue for the port, as well as our commissioners, and we've had a commissioner involved extensively in some of our meetings with our terminal operators. But to date, we had close to 100 meetings with stakeholders, and that's since 2015 through today, with stakeholders including labor, shipping lines, terminal operators, trucking companies, and chassis providers. And we're looking at supply chain efficiencies. Data was the key message. People wanted to receive data, get early information of when cargo was going to be coming to them. And we saw that when we saw the Ben Franklin come the day after Christmas back in 2015, is that the people want cargo, want information, and preparing ourselves better for when those ships do arrive, getting chassis into place, getting the rail carriers to have their rail cars in place, and so forth. This led to the initiative that we put out an RFP for the eventual selection of GE Transportation. And they helped us develop a portal that provides early indication of cargo and when cargo will be available for pickup. We are doing a 6-week test, and we're working with 2 major shipping lines, Maersk and MSC, and 1 major terminal, which is APM Terminals, along with 10 beneficial cargo owners such as Target, Walmart, Gap, and their trucking companies as well. And GE is currently collecting the data, and we're putting it into a usable form, which can be shared and tested. And we're going to start testing that in mid-May. It'll conclude at the end of June. And the early results of this shows information is very helpful, and GE has developed an outstanding portal, which we'd like to show you at a later date after it's been finalized. I think in your packet there you have a 1-page write-up about GE and our initiatives with them. Definitely been a positive move forward, and our customers are very excited over that. The next,
And by the way, for all colleagues, since we're going through all these items, if you have any questions on any of these, please just jump in. I don't want us to have to wait till the end.
Great.
Because there's too much. But just interesting on the GE and all that data, it seems like a great addition to our open data movement as a city. And I don't know if there's a way to link that to some of the open data pages that we have in this city.
So the interesting thing is that the port and the city does not own the data. So we have facilitated the groups to work together. The cargo owners, shipping lines have signed NDAs with GE so that the information is kept proprietary. So the information is channeled access to, for example, a cargo owner has a specific trucking company, so that trucking company can only see that cargo owner's cargo. They can't see anybody else's. So it's channeled access and it's proprietary.
Is there a way to get some of the metadata, and obviously respecting all the proprietary issues, and I understand that and respect that, but as we try to show off more of all the things that the city is doing and that you can click on and see, even if there was a way to have some of that metadata go automatically into an open portal that the city, that could be part of the city pages, that would be, I think, useful and in the spirit of things, if it was legal and appropriate. And
we can look into that most definitely. Maybe some of the higher level stuff that talks about the ship's arrival, cargo availability on a general basis might be available.
How much is coming in and out
Sure.
of our port?
Yeah, there might be some
Without
ability to that. Yes, we can look into that. That's a good question. So thank you.
Please continue.
The next item is the alliances, and in front of you, you have a graphical picture of the alliances and what they look like before and what they look like today. So the vessels just started leaving Asia under this new alliance formation that you see on the right side of the document that you have in front of you. And the arrows represent where shipping lines have merged. And then you can see on the right side who are in the new alliances and the shipping lines that are involved in that. So as you can see, the shipping lines or the alliances reduced from 4 to 3, and it consists of 13 different ocean carriers. There's going to be 23 different services coming to the Port of Los Angeles and Long Beach, and we think as of right now between 14 and 15 services of those 23 will be coming to the Port of LA, and the remaining ones calling at the Port of Long Beach. So they'll be calling at 11 different terminals. You can see the terminal names are identified in the little brownish light colored boxes, and those are the terminals that they'll be having cargo call at. So we're staying very close to that. We're watching the services to ensure that the Port of Los Angeles gets a large share of those vessel services calling, and we're working very hard on that. And you can see that it's paid off with 14 to 15 of those services coming to the Port of LA. So it's just a little overview. Those ships are going to start arriving the second, third week of April. So we'll start seeing these ships in this new alliance formation during that time. So any questions on the alliances?
No.
Great.
Okay. We'll talk a little bit about a few of our projects right now that have to do with the cargo side. The first is our tray pack development. I think most of you have heard about this program. It's the Port of LA's first automated terminal. It's a 210-acre development. The project included a LEED Gold administration building, a intermodal rail yard, and with the completion of that rail yard, now every single one of our terminals in the port actually has intermodal capability on dock. And like I said, the automation and electrification. The project was budgeted $510 million. Our current projections are, we'll probably come in at about $484 million, or about almost $26 million below our budget. We've completed 9 of the 10 projects associated with the program. The last project that should be completed in May of this year is a crane maintenance building that's under construction, and it's a $9.5 million program. All in all, I think it's a very challenging, complex project, and I always have to acknowledge, I think, the design and construction teams who made that project seem a bit smoother than I think it really was. So that's been, like I said, we've signed off on the project, handed it over to TRAPAC, except for the one building that's under construction right now. They're doing some of the, I'll say, tweaking of the systems, on the automation. And again, I think it's if you haven't had a chance to go out there, I think we would be happy to give you a tour of the facilities. The other project we have on the cargo side is our YTI development. This project was basically a deepening of 2 existing container berths and an intermodal yard expansion and some backland rehabilitation. We've completed the wharf jobs, the back-end rehabilitation. In fact, next week we will be turning over all those acres to YTI, several months ahead of schedule.
That's
Yeah, I think it was initially September. They've asked us for an acceleration. We were able to accommodate them. The project also included some expansion of the AMP facility, or the shore-to-ship power facilities there, to allow us more flexibility in plugging ships in to reduce emissions. That was a $58 million program. We're trending to budget right now, and we will not be over budget. And the ICTF, for the rail yard, will actually start construction next week. As we pull off the other areas, we'll go into the new rail yard construction. And so we anticipate completing that in November.
So one of the benefits of this particular terminal is that through these efforts, because they had only 2 berths at one time, they're now going to be accepting, and this project allowed for 3 berths. They're going to have 3 services in this new alliance formation that we've seen here. So definitely has paid off for us.
Everport, very similar to the YTI project. It's deepening 2 existing berths, expansion of the AMP system to allow greater flexibility of the different size ships we're seeing, and a very minor expansion of 1.5 acre backland expansion. That is also a $58 million budget for that project. Right now we are in the EIS process. We anticipate certification of the documents by the end of this year. So I don't know if there's any questions on those cargo projects.
If I can, Mr. Chair,
Please.
how do these terminal projects relate to our neighbors to the east of us, the Port of Long Beach? I know we were seeing millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in investments, which is it's good. It's going to keep us competitive. But what's the other side doing? I know competition is good, and we seem to be competing more with Long Beach than any other port in the country.
Yeah.
But I know overall, it's 2 ports, or 1 in 9 jobs come out of both ports in Southern California, 1 in 50 throughout the country. But what's Long Beach doing on their side?
Well, I think I'll call it their crown jewel project right now is their Meadow Harbor project. If you compare that to TRAPAC, and that's their automated program. And
On dock, automated.
On dock.
On rail.
No,
Yeah.
our dock is not automated at LBCT. But
Right. Actually, ours is maybe a little more sophisticated.
Oh, so it's not.
their on dock is not automated.
I see.
Now, there are 3 berth facilities. Their entire terminal is automated, though. They're the backlands. So TRAPAC has that portion of the 136, we call the 136, 139 portion, that is still a conventional terminal at this point. Now, so ours was a terminal retrofit, $510 million. Theirs is a 3-berth facility at about $1.3 billion. It's hard to compare apples to apples. They had to do some landfills and some other issues. Also, the type of automation, the horizontal conveyance in the terminal is different. They use what they call the AGVs, the automated guided vehicles. We use the red straddle carriers. I think you've seen those. So it's a little bit of a different concept.
So out of the alliances that are, the new alliances that have formed,
Yes.
which out of the alliances are going to CUT?
CUT is on our side. There's, you mean LBCT?
sorry. Yeah.
LBCT.
Yeah.
LBCT would be the Ocean Alliance, which is the OCL, Costco, CMA, and Evergreen Alliance. So a little bit more on Long Beach's development projects. As you know, they have the old Hanjin terminal, which is now it's GTI terminal, and MSC is their biggest customer. And they have 375-acre facility, which is fairly new. It's not that old. They have undergone a crane raising program already. But as far as any other developments at the Port of Long Beach, they actually are just relying on their LBCT project and that price tag of 1.3, almost
And I
up to
understand
1.5 billion.
It's expensive to move goods at that terminal, right?
I'm sorry?
I mean, per can, I understand it's.
Yes, their cost per TEU is pretty high to pay off that $1.5 billion debt that they have. And that's just the port's infrastructure cost. Obviously, the tenant has their equipment cost on top of that.
You're comfortable with these alliances the new alliances that are formed, that we are pretty secured in our long-term lease agreements there at the terminals?
Yes, we do have some work to do on the West Basin Yangming terminal. Their permit expires in 2021, so we're working closely with them on that.
West Basin also includes China shipping. Right?
China shipping has a different expiration date, which is 2030.
Okay.
So we are working closely with Yangming on doing a longer-term project out there. That also includes a longer-term permit on that one. But facilities like TreyPac is in the mid-2030s expiration. Same with Evergreen after we do this project. Eagle Marine, 2040 time
I've
period.
also learned, Mike, that, and Tony, long-term leases are good, but still they're not sustainable because they can easily say, thank you very much, we'll cash out here and go elsewhere, right?
Well, we do have minimum annual guarantees that they have to pay
They have to pay.
through the term of their permit. Correct.
So we know we're going to get that income.
Right. That is correct. Guaranteed income to allow us for our bond acquisitions and so forth.
And since Mike did bring up Yangming, I think it's also good to note that at the completion of these projects, Yangming will be the only terminal that we need to work on to have deep water berths in all our terminal facilities right now. So we're doing very well, I think, as far as our cargo infrastructure. Switching gears right now to our community and our investment into the community. So I want to talk a little bit about the LA Waterfront. The LA Waterfront's over 400 acres of areas that we're developing for commercial, recreational use, I don't say taken away from cargo operations, but enhancing those type of facilities we have right now and adding more to allow the community to come in to have access to the waterfront. The key to moving these projects forward is our public investment plan, though, our public access investment plan that was passed by our board in 2015. As part of that plan, the port is allocating 10% of our annual operating income to these projects. If you look at over a 10-year horizon, that's about $200 million. Our goal is to split that evenly between the San Pedro and the Wilmington waterfronts. So I want to touch on very quickly some of the projects that are in process right now. On the San Pedro side, the Samson Way Realignment project is under construction. It's a $14.8 million project, broke ground in December of 2016. Right now, all the existing rail and other removals have been completed, and we're importing soil into that area. Phase 2 should actually begin at the end of this month, and the project should be completed in August of 2018. This roadway project will be the new entrance into the new San Pedro Public Market commercial development. The San Pedro Public Market is a 30-acre redevelopment of the what was known or still known as the Ports of Call area. Last year, the port signed a 50-year agreement with the LA Waterfront Alliance, which is made up of the Ratkovich Group Company and Jericho Development. Currently, we're actually working with the developer on the design of the facility. In fact, at 3 o'clock this afternoon, we'll be sitting down with them to go over the coordination between what we call our promenade town square with their development to make sure it looks like a unified design.
Right, nice.
Yeah, the public investment portion of it that the port is doing is a $32.9 million investment. That is to take care of about a 1 mile long promenade along the main channel and what we call the town square at the foot of 6th Street. I don't know if there's any questions on that development now or comments.
You know, we love seeing shovels in our district. We're seeing massive trucks moving dirt, and that's a great sign, and it's showing that it's happening and investment is coming our way. So really appreciate the partnership on that. Thank you.
Yeah. And I should note, I think, that project involved many different city agencies, Public Works, Rec and Parks, DOT, and everybody worked great together to make that one happen. So.
And the mayor's directed through his order of all the general managers that come into the table to make sure it's seamless transition and getting everyone at the table. So really appreciate that.
Yes. And
Dave LeBreeze had a great article on it today.
Oh, good. I didn't see that. Good. And obviously your office too with the help and the coordination was, I think, very key to getting it done.
This committee as well. This committee and
this committee.
Entire city council has really been supportive of the effort. Thank you.
You want to talk a little bit about the Wilmington? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Exciting stuff all around, so go ahead.
Okay. The Wilmington Waterfront Promenade, I wanted to touch on that a little bit. Now, I understand we're probably going to be coming back to this committee shortly to do maybe a more in-depth presentation on this. And so, but I'll give a little bit of highlight, and then I don't want to steal all the thunder when they come back. The Wilmington Waterfront Promenade is a multi-phase program. So right now, the promenade portion, I don't know if anybody here has been down to what we call the Banning's Landing area in Wilmington. This portion is about an 8-acre, almost a triangular area down on the waterfront area. The port awarded a contract to Sasaki Associates a couple of years ago for the design of that. We're in the middle of design right now, actually towards about 80% design. We should be done with design of this area in November of 2017, at which time we'd like to go out and advertise for construction. There are some water and power coordination issues that we're dealing with right now, and we hope to get those done soon. But
you know, there's a meeting going on right now with GWP on this issue.
On this one too, right?
Yeah. In my office.
Yeah. Again, highly appreciate it. Yes. And so, it's interesting. We need a parcel from Water and Power, and they've agreed to do some land swaps with us.
Right.
It was interesting. This parcel back in probably 1940, we actually swapped to Water and Power back then. So now we're doing a little bit, trying to get it back. So.
Got it.
Interesting history. What we call the Avalon Promenade is the next phase of this project, and this is again very dependent upon Water and Power land right now. And this is actually part of this element is a pedestrian bridge that will cross over the railroad tracks and really connect to the downtown Avalon corridor and business district. So it's really these two projects together really form a corridor that connects downtown Wilmington to the waterfront. And so this phase is a $23.8 million phase. In February of this year, the board awarded a contract to LA firm T.Y. Lin to do the design and the structural engineering of the bridge and the surrounding areas. We will be having a series of workshops with the community to go over the design of this area. The first workshop should be in May of 2017, followed by one in September, and then in the fall. This is we've had a lot of comments from the community on what they would like to see in this area, parking issues, access issues. So these workshops are what we normally do to make sure we get the public input in that. Another outreach is the ULI Technical Assistance Panel, or the ULI TAP. There's a portion within this project that is outside the tidelands, but port-owned property that is key. I mean, commercial development in that portion will be key to making this area successful. So we bring in ULI in at the end of this month, April 25th and 26th, to help brainstorm and make recommendations on how to make this project successful. Again, looking at the linkages to downtown, to the waterfront, and looking at that area between Harry Bridges and C Street and down to the waterfront to make sure that we do everything in a smart way. And it ties all together, yeah. We're looking at a group consisting of 18 different stakeholders, 18 different stakeholder groups being represented. We're looking at about maybe 12 community representatives and 6 internal city representatives on the ULI tab.
Appreciate that effort, if I can, Mr. Chairman. We feel that there's so much opportunity in downtown Wilmington along the Avalon corridor. This will be the mouth that feeds into the development efforts along the Avalon corridor. So really appreciate your partnership on this. Something that we've asked the port to do in my office is to bring on ULI, similar to what downtown San Pedro did years ago. So happy to see this moving forward, and the fact that you are including key stakeholders in looking at the best and highest use of that area there.
The last thing I have in the waterfront is actually, well, actually, as far as projects, is the Alta Sea development. And I think a lot of you have already heard about the Alta Sea. It's the Marine and Ocean Research.
Talking about it, yeah.
Yeah. And it's, I think the only thing we want to highlight here on this is we are finalizing a new lease agreement with Alta Sea. As part of this new agreement, we'll actually be able to expedite the activation of the site, looking at restructuring the phasing that was in the original permit. Alta Sea's first phase will be a $15 million renovation of the, we call it BIRD's 58 to 60 warehouses, so adaptive reuse and getting companies in there quickly. They've already have a couple of, I don't know if they're potential leases or leases, talking to Boeing and Catalina Sea Ranch. Schools too. And the schools, yeah. Coastal permit has already been issued by the Board of Harbor Commissioners, and we do anticipate building permits should be issued within the next 60 to 90 days for the renovation of those warehouses. We also want to talk a little bit about programming the waterfront, some of the activities.
And quickly, just remind,
oh, yes.
Remind my colleagues on Alta Sea, this is the key driving force of diversification of the workforce down at the waterfront area. The longshore work, we've been blessed to have the longshore workforce really provide for their families, but we want to give future generations other options, and we truly believe that Alta Sea would be that driving force to diversify our workforce in LA, not only the San Pedro Wilmington communities. SpaceX is expanding their footprint. They're looking elsewhere along the port. They need ocean-going vessels to bring in Falcon 9 as they continue to expand their space program. And Boeing has entered into an MOU, and Dr. Ballard, modern-day Jacques Cousteau, is there on site during his winter months. So really appreciate the effort. But it's also, we have to hold Alta Sea accountable as a nonprofit to continue to raise the money that they're raising to see this entire project lift off the ground. So really excited about that progress. And thanks, that's another true public-private partnership that
Definitely
we're seeing.
is, yes. It was actually pretty exciting to see Dr. Ballard at one of our board meetings talking about the Nautilus and his adventures, so yeah. Any questions on those right now? Okay. So programmatic activities on the waterfront. Again, it's one thing to do brick and mortar developments on the waterfront, but the other thing is to activate it. And so, all these are, obviously on our website, but we just want to highlight a few things that will be happening this summer. One is our 9th annual Cars and Stripes Forever event down near the cruise terminal. This is on Friday, June 30th. It's wonderful entertainment, food, and fireworks show right before the 4th of July. Lobster Festival has been going on for several years. We changed locations last year to be near the Battleship Iowa. This year, the Lobster Fest will be on July 14th, 15th, and 16th, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Again, another fun event. But I think the premier event that's been, actually the last year was the first year, was Fleet Week at the port. Fleet Week, as I think many of you know, is held around the country, usually in destinations like San Diego, San Francisco, and New York. Very successful. Last year was the first time LA had Fleet Week. I think, and Council Member, you've heard, I think, very glowing reports as far as the success of the event. It's it's the week of Labor Day, so September 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th this year. Mayor Garcetti was there, and it was again such a great event. We heard from the restaurants in town and a lot of the businesses. This was one of their highest weeks ever as far as retail and food service. And so, happening again.
14th, 15th, 16th?
July 14th, 15th, and 16th.
14th,
correct.
15th.
In front of the eye.
Does not conflict with the Mary Star Fiesta.
Another big event in town, right? Yeah.
I would, if I may, Mr. Chairman, as we're bringing in these, and programming the waterfront, this is fantastic for us, and more is coming. But at the same time, with the construction and online, I don't think I've ever been more excited about an expected traffic jam in the last 5 years than this, because we know we're making progress is happening. But I would encourage the port to work collectively with Port PD as well as DOT to ensure that the traffic flows smoothly during these critical events down at the port.
Definitely. Thank you.
And if, obviously, our doors are open, anything we can do to help out and bring Chief Savali from DOT to coordinate. And we have the chairman of Transportation Committee to my right, Mr. Bonin, can help lead that up.
We'll all agree to keep all the traffic jams in Joe's district.
I'm all in favor. Traffic needs money for me.
So we'll just make sure that our bike share program is in place by then, so that we can get folks down there via the bike share.
Good point. So I'm going to hand it over to Mike now to talk a little bit about the environment.
Okay, thank you, Tony. So real quick, just on the Clean Air Action Plan, as you may know, Ports of LA, Ports of Long Beach have a joint Clean Air Action Plan. The last update was done in 2010, so we're now undergoing a new update, and it provides overall strategy for dramatically reducing air pollution emissions from cargo movement in and around the ports. So since 2005, with our 8% increase of cargo, DPM is down 84%, NOx down 50%, greenhouse gas is down 12%, and SOx down 97%. So this one here we're calling our CAP 2017 update. Draft framework has gone out to the public on November of 2016. Comments are continuing to come in. Some of the strategies that we're looking at are advancing the clean truck program by phasing out the older equipment and transitioning to zero emission equipment when feasibly available, transition to zero emission terminal operating equipment, developing clean ship program to move oldest vessels out of the fleet calling the San Pedro Bay, accelerate the deployment of cleaner harbor craft engines, and expanding the use of our on-dock rail. There's been over 50 meetings with different stakeholders receiving input on this draft framework. We received a lot of comments from people saying that once we put out the document, they want time to review it and time to provide public comments. We're going to be getting out the document with its details at the end of May. So we are sensitive to everyone's concerns. We are working closely with the Port of Long Beach. We have 2 commissioners from our side, 2 commissioners on their side, working on a subcommittee which are talking about some of the new transportation bills that have come out, and especially the new CARB amendments. So we're taking those into account. So once these board members meet, and I think we have a meeting scheduled for next week, we're going to talk about when the final document will come out for the 2 boards to approve it sometime in the summertime of this year, early summer. So that's what our plan is for the Clean Air Action Plan. So hopefully you've had an opportunity to look at it. If you haven't, we'll make sure you get a copy of the draft framework so you have an opportunity to view that.
It's exciting, and I'm thrilled that it's coming out soon. Do any of the federal, some of the stuff that's happening at the federal level vis-a-vis clean air regulations have an impact?
They do, and those elements are being thought of in our document as well. There's some things that the state has just recently implemented where they're looking at all ships plugging in 100% by a certain year. Very difficult to do because not every ship can plug in or put a bonnet on. There's not even enough bonnets around the port to cover every ship that can't plug in. And they're also looking at yard equipment and the requirements of the yard equipment. So we're taking those into account. looking at the years that we have, the years they have, and see how they correlate.
Because the state and federal kind of go in different directions at this point. So
Yes. So we're watching those closely.
hopefully we're going to stick with the state strict guidelines and not let ourselves fall back.
And as previous clean air action plans, we've been very aggressive on some of our measures and kind of set the stage, especially on the clean trucks, where we asked for 2007. Trucks are better before the state mandate. So we're looking at some new timelines of when the trucks should be phased in. And we are doing a lot of testing of alternative fuel trucks, hydrogen-powered as hydrogen fuel cells, as well as LNG, and the potential of electric for some of the shorter distant drays.
And from what I understand, you are at the 2020 levels of
Yes.
reductions?
Yes, we are.
Something
Our emissions are much better than what we originally thought.
That's something, Mr. Chairman, that we raised at the AQMD as we put together the AQMP for the next several years. So I know the work has been done, both us and the Port of Long Beach, but more needs to be done to get attainment to a near zero emission port. I'd love to see, we all like
Right.
to see in our timeline. It'll be the first zero emission port in the world, and I believe we have the leadership and the will to get there, and the technology to get there as well. So
Unfortunately, the on-road technology is a little bit taking its time to come into play, and the testing of the LNG trucks for the duty cycles that we look for have not been done yet. So we're continuing to do testing. And we just had one trucking company receive a 12-liter LNG truck, and they're testing it right now to see how it works in the duty cycle. So that's promising if that does work.
But we need to be clear that the state needs to help us out with
Absolutely.
incentivizing our truckers and our truck companies to get to that technology that's needed.
And grant funding is desperately needed for some of these entities as well.
Yeah, which takes us to our last bullet item here is grants. So we just want to touch on some of the environmental grants that we have received and are working on. So presently we've received about $27 million worth of grants. These range from anywhere from $800,000 to do some repowering of existing diesel equipment to a $14.5 million grant to do what we call the Green Omni Terminal, looking at the Pasha Terminal, which is looking at microgrids, solar power, battery power. It's actually got 1 megawatt of solar on a roof is planned, and they did LED retrofits already in this terminal, and they're also testing electric-powered, battery-powered equipment on the terminal. It's a very exciting program, a lot of new technology within the footprint of the terminal. It is a smaller terminal. It's not a container terminal. It's one of our bulk terminals, but it's a good test bed for some of these new technologies. We have probably right now about 5 different grants that we've got ranging from EPA, the California Energy Commission, EPA, CARB. A lot of it is to test brand new equipment or battery powered equipment and yard tractors, 0.02 yard tractors. It's just a mix of different technologies that hopefully will be successful and will then be able to use for these zero emission goals that we have in the port. Lastly, I got to say that we not only apply for grants, we actually also give grants. So right now, I just wanted to mention that we are soliciting bids for, we have our Community Investment Grant Program. We have about $1 million that we'll give out to various community groups. It has to be a port nexus to these, to their proposals, but it's on our website. The applications are due on May 8th. And grants will be, we have them in 3 different categories: small grants, medium grants, and large grants. Small is $5,000 and less, medium is between $5,000 and $100,000, and large grants are above $100,000. And so we have a package on our website. Encourage anybody, community groups or nonprofits or others, to look at that and apply for it. Again, there needs to be a port nexus, and but it's worthwhile for a lot of folks.
Are any of our EPA grants or any other federal grants in jeopardy at this point?
Not that we know of at this point. So we're still moving forward. The EPA one, especially because that one is for, the EPA one is for some different diesel trucks and testing of those and getting those into place. So as of right now, We've already applied for the money. We're getting the money back as far as we know. No changes.
Theoretically, those are the contract phase at this point, so we'll get those, even if they do cut some of these programs, we may not get it. We may not get it next year, we may not get the second phase.
Correct.
Correct.
You raise a good point, though, and the point of concern of what's taking place at the federal level. Dave LeBatique, we have folks on the ground in D.C. working with.
In fact,
the
Gene
administration.
Soroka's in D.C. this week as well, and David LeBatique, as you mentioned, is constantly out there and communicating with the folks that we have, as well as our lobbyists that are out there, and also doing the same efforts in California in Sacramento.
One thing we didn't cover, but when is the EIR for China shipping expected to be completed?
So we're continuing to work through the supplemental EIR. In fact, today we spent a 3-hour meeting on doing a page turner, and we're going to continue to do that the rest of this week. And we are doing some additional analysis, and we're looking to have that document out to the public for review before June is our plan.
Well, a lot of exciting things happening. Colleagues, any other questions?
Good.
Comments? So we appreciate getting an update on these gives you a chance to cover things that may not come up in the regular order of things. So we appreciate you taking the time
Absolutely.
to do it. And I believe that's our last item. Any additional things on the agenda?
Thank you for your attention. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Great. Thank you so much.
No, Mr. Chair.
Two great Pedro boys right here. Pedro sons. Work in the Port of Los Angeles, executive positions. It's possible. It is possible.
All right.
That was a Tom LaBonge, by the way. That was a Tom LaBonge. You got to bring back Tom LaBonge.
And with that important comment, this meeting's adjourned. Thank you.